it's a learning.
I just did that?
Do we have a name tag for? What?
We don't, yeah,
This one first.
we don't, yeah.
Yeah, they have to be sworn in.
I'm getting their emails set up and we got a whole binder we're giving them. I mean, Audrey's been busy making binders.
Yeah?
Good. I didn't get one.
We'll get you one.
You want one?
Oh,
I might want one.
no, we'll definitely give you one.
Yeah, I think that would be.
Audrey will get one too,
Yeah, I might need one.
in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Here's
I
an
don't remember what
extra
it said.
She's not gonna be there?
That's the trick, yeah.
Well, this is me.
What?
I was looking at you like, why are you there?
Janelle's here, if you want to say she'll be late.
I'd like to sit straight on if you don't.
Okay, you do that?
You guys having some little fun stuff.
Help
You know,
yourself.
oh, I chowed when I got home. I was so hungry. I didn't have lunch today. Hi, Mike.
Howdy. Our board leadership was just meeting this morning about casual, learning, because the board workshop is really meant to be
A learning.
open discussion,
There's no
dialogue.
decisions, just
Yep.
information.
Just
talk.
information.
Talking in front of people.
It is exactly
We do all of
what
our
it is.
talking, Jenny, we do all of our talking in front of an audience.
That's a good smile.
Thank you.
I brought
I'm
a
glad you picked
notebook.
up on that.
I usually do, but I forgot.
Hey, look, I got all kinds of paper. You want some?
I got paper in here. I got backs of other pieces of paper I can write things on if I need to.
This is pretty.
Now, in your packet, this is the second agenda.
Pretty
She
and
stapled
later
from.
work, but
Right.
an extra layer.
And,
This is the closed, this is the workshop.
Oh, she stayed with me.
I don't ever wear a coat anymore.
I think she just gave me the red line.
Just get 'em.
The red line's just the, with the,
Okay, so-
give it to-
You help my friend Jake?
That was your friend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rock
Yeah.
and rolling?
Yeah,
I reached out to your wife
Mike,
Did you?
can
on Facebook.
grab food if he wants to.
Okay, we're ready.
I'm good. I actually ate right before I got here. I had brats.
I worked on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
So the problem with that, Mike, is you can bring one for me. Don't stop.
Well, we're in our closed session. You just run to my house or.
Oh, that's perfect.
It'll be in the fridge.
I'll just go right to your house, to your kitchen.
Okay, we're going to get this workshop started.
Like your goodbye?
Our mission, Raymond School District is dedicated to providing a child-centered learning environment, expecting all students to learn and succeed. We commit to providing and utilizing a progressive, relevant curriculum, encouraging all students to become responsible citizens prepared to meet the challenges of the future. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public to conduct the school district's updates, planning, and learning, and is not to be considered a public board meeting that conducts school district business. This meeting is now called to order. It is 5:33. Penny, are you taking notes? Are you doing minutes or?
I'm doing minutes.
You're doing minutes? Okay. Okay.
No, not yet.
We got a pledge.
Practice.
Okay. We move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call of attendance, please.
Patty Wren,
Here.
Ed Robinson,
Here.
Mike Powers,
Here.
Audrey Costick,
Here.
and Janelle Wise is absent but excused. We also want to welcome a new incoming board member, Jenny Gonzalez, so congrats on the big W.
Well, okay, let's admit it. I was the one with the least amount of the three.
You said it, but
Probably because you didn't have any signs out.
I didn't have any signs out, and it's not my maiden name, too. Everybody knows Launderville more than they know Gonzalez here,
You go
so.
by Jen or Jenny?
Jen,
Okay.
Jenny,
okay. Welcome to this learning event.
Thank you.
Obviously, this is workshop is different. There's no action tonight. It's just about learning and discussion. So
okay,
Much more cash.
your swearing in officially will be on
the
June
22nd.
2nd.
So Mike, I'm going to ask for verification of public notice pursuant to 19.841 Wisconsin statutes.
The meeting was posted in all the usual places, schoolhouse stores, Evergent, down the village hall, as well as online, and media were notified, and hi, Heather. And present.
It was notified. The media was notified. There you go.
Okay, we move to the topics for learning and discussion. And Mike, I think this is where you jump in.
Yes, so we have a couple things to talk about as we have, this season we're in right now that I really want our board to understand. And just for the public who are following along, I did go to our website under meeting minutes and agendas to get all the information we're going to right now. And so the agendas are posted there. Just want to encourage people to go check that out. But the agenda for today, really the topics for learning are about assessment and strategic planning. Assessment season is the one we are in. That's probably why if you look over at Dana Marty, she's very tired. Dana serves as our DAC, District Assessment Coordinator. And so she runs all assessments for Raymond. That, in most places you'd think, well, how many tests could that be? It's quite a few. When you think about it, there's some that all kids take, and then there's some that certain populations take, like EL students, English language learners. There's other assessments that kids will take throughout the year. So we wanted the board to hear about assessment. This is one of those big pieces that is not really controversial, but it's a topic that educators have opinions about. I do think that we have to always be cautious as to what's the purpose of the assessment kids are taking, because these are kids. And you don't want to just have test. I have older kids myself, and sometimes it feels like that at the high school level, because each week it seems like they've got some sort of assessment, which isn't, again, the worst thing, but what's it used for, and how does it tell their growth, which is really all that the K-8 experience is about, is growth over that, 10-year period of a kid's life, from K4 up to 8th grade.
Is this a requirement by the DHS or?
The Department of Ed hands down things, and then State of Wisconsin DPI has testing protocols and expectations. So Dana will tell all about that good stuff. I'm stealing her thunder. So she just gave the cue of like, so I'll let Dana take over, but we'll talk about assessment, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions.
Do you have the?
I do.
Okay. I'm gonna have to boss you around on clicking a little bit. So, yes, I am the district assessment coordinator, and that's, go ahead and go to that next one. Uh-oh, no, back. Michael.
I can't even do it correctly.
Wait for that assessment calendar to load. I just wanted, and you kind of scroll down there, so you can see starting in December, or September, right away, we start doing testing. And so we have our screenings for our younger kids, which are called universal screenings. We have diagnostic screenings. We have access testing for ELs. We have FastBridge, and you can see how it goes all throughout the year. We are right now in our forward testing mode, and so that's what Michael's talking to you about. I'll go into these a bit further. I just wanted to show you how big the calendar is. And most of those are state mandated in one way or another.
Does it get turned in, the results?
Some of them do. Forward does for sure, and now the new stuff we're doing with the screening on the youngers is going to be to the state. So just wanted to talk about the different types that we have. So when we say universal screening, we give those to everybody. I think I have that on the slide. I'm going to hold that for the next slide. I'm going to talk about these in a little more detail. So there's universal screening, diagnostic, which we kind of use to set up our interventions, and along with that, we monitor kids' progress throughout their interventions. There's, of course, the state testing we'll talk about, and then good old classroom testing. Okay.
So when a kid says, I have a test today, it doesn't necessarily mean
Could be anything.
that the teacher has a test. It means there's something else they're running through.
Okay, so the universal screening, 3 times per year on all students. That's just reading and math. Okay, and it uses standard assessment or skills to evaluate those core academic skills. So it's a test you go in, everyone takes the same test. Sometimes they can adapt as you take them and get harder. That's how MAP used to be. But right now, we're in this model where everyone takes the same screening test, and kids are rated on a percentile basis, 25th and below, and that's our cutoff for knowing we need to go to the next level. Anyone over the 25th is actually considered in normal range, and that's 25th percentile nationally. Okay. Yes,
I have a question.
yes.
Does that mean that a student in third grade has the same test as a student in?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. No.
Okay.
Per year,
Same
it is
type of-
different, yes, but it
Okay.
doesn't change as they get questions right or wrong, like
Gotcha.
MAP used to.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so if they are on the 25th percentile or below, we have to go in and do this diagnostic testing. And that's where we're gonna look to figure out, yes, you have a low reading score, now why? Which skills do you need to work on? So, the state mandates that we use, it doesn't tell us which exact one to use, but it says it has to have certain characteristics. We use FastBridge for that. It pinpoints our specific learning gaps and we create our interventions. Now, sometimes we do need to go a little bit further because some kids are a mystery and we can't measure everyone on the same test. So sometimes we'll have to do a little more what we call like a one-on-one testing or a reading inventory or that kind of thing to see.
Dana, I have a question.
Yes.
How does motivation play into diagnostic testing as it relates to the regular tests we take?
So I think more so the universal screener is more of a problem than the diagnostic testing, and especially when the kids get older. So 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they take the same test, and they've kind of figured out that it's not a grade, you know, and so that's really hard for them. So we try to just encourage them the best we can and explain how it lets teachers know where we need help, and we do determine, in 8th grade it's easier, as in 8th grade, those scores, the high school likes to see those for if we recommend kids for advanced English or whichever math they're gonna be in, so. But it gets a little murky in the middle. Motivation is a big deal, and focus and attention can be as well, because it's a computerized test.
Assessment has to be meaningful and
Yep.
useful. And
Yep.
kids figure out the game real quick that, oh, this doesn't matter. And we can sometimes say that by trying to ease the anxiety of testing, because sometimes kids are anxious, test takers, and we try to downplay it and say, oh, don't worry about it, it's okay. But the second they stop worrying about it, and they'll absolutely do terribly on the test, and that's not a good indicator. And then you're spending man hours on diagnostics for
Yeah.
a false low. And so you don't typically get false highs.
Right.
Because the tests are set up enough that you're not going to guess your way to a championship.
Right.
So there may be some of that, but at the same time, you're going to get some indicators sometimes that are low, and then you're spending time. That's why we talk about triangulation of data. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, kind of how that
Yeah,
works.
so we don't want to take just one piece of data to look at a kid. We want to look at that universal screener, then we look at testing a different way. We also like to see how they're doing in the classroom, of course. We're based on the standard, so we want to have at least 3 points, that's why it's called triangulation, or more, to kind of put the picture together for the student.
So do you explain to the kids that this is a way to determine whether or not you need extra help or not?
Yeah.
This is not about your, like ACT or SAT or any of that, but it's the pinpoint problems you might have that we
Or-
can help you with.
Or even different ways the teachers need to teach. I try to kind of put it that way if I'm in front of the kids. That way they don't feel the pressure themselves. But this, really try your best, because we need to know this so that your classroom teacher knows how to guide the instruction.
Yep,
That makes sense?
Yeah, that goes
So,
both ways, yeah.
and our kids do pretty well, mostly on this and taking it seriously, but I think just as much as motivation is focus. They're so used to clicking and clicking and clicking, sometimes we get them on the computers and that's what they're doing, so, yeah. Okay, so the kids who do need help, we put them in intervention, and we have right now 1.5 interventionists here. And they work with the kids who need the most help, and they're, right now, because of all the requirements, they are mainly working in reading for K-3, which pushes all the other intervention or extra help back on the classroom teachers. So that's kind of been, we've had to absorb that this year with the Act 20. That's been a little bit difficult. But we do go in and then test them because we need to see if what we're doing is working. So we do that weekly or bi-weekly.
Can I ask, am I able
Yeah.
to ask a question too? What percentage of students, go through the diagnostic testing or that need a little extra?
A really good question. So
This
it
is the
depends
first
on the
year,
grade.
right? Is this our first year doing this one?
Well, it's a new test, so this new one that we're doing is
Correct.
flagging a lot more kids than we've had in the past. It's a whole different.
Okay.
So it depends on the grade. Like in kindergarten, it's about 20%. In first grade, it's, I would say that looks like, that's about typical. Yeah. We've changed some of the ways we're teaching now with the science of reading, getting that foundations and phonics space, and what we're hoping and what we're actually seeing is kids who were in intervention and now have grown out. So what we're doing seems to be working. We're happy about that, but it's a lot of work as we're doing it. So, yeah, we would love to reduce those numbers. Oh, yeah. Oh, a lot of these mandates that, the amount of testing, the way we test, the way we teach, what I'm finding a hard time keeping up with is the communication. Because there's so many, you have to give this test and you have 15 days to send that out to families, and then you gotta do this other test and you get another 10 days, and then you gotta develop a plan, and it's all, yeah, it's been quite a big,
So you communicate a lot of this stuff to the
yeah.
parents?
Oh, yeah, all of it.
All of it. And the struggle with that is sometimes people are busy and they pay attention as best they can, but it's like, which test is this now for which kid of mine? So to explain where it fits in the life of a kid can be problematic. Plus, what does it mean, I guess, is the other question sometimes. And the new Act 20 stuff is talking about retention, holding kids back, flunking kids, if you will, and other things like that, which can sometimes also get emotions involved. And so you want to make sure we're doing it. And Dana and the team are doing a great job of getting those communications out, but then also making sure people are reading those emails and what's the best way to send it, snail mail versus email. So we're working with all those processes.
Yeah. So then the big one is really the forward test. And the reason I call it that would be considered your high stakes test, meaning it's public. Everyone sees it. It's on the report card. But there's and it measures against the state standards, but there's some big nuances there. One is it's a once-a-year test. It's one kid, one day, taking this portion of the test. Good day, bad day, whatever. So that's, we want to, it's a good way to measure our overall, but it's not always the best way to measure kid by kid depending on their circumstances. So, but it is something that we're required to do, and it does help us understand how we're doing as a school, and that's how we knew we did pretty well. The other one is the access test. We have a few kids that speak a language other than English as their first language, so we have to test this as well in December. Oh, English language learner. Yep. Right.
What used to be ESL, English as a second language, now they call ELL, English language learners.
How many students do we have?
I think this year we tested 6. It's not a lot. And just because you speak another language at home, or that was your language, you may come in and we screen you in kindergarten and know you've got enough command of both languages that you don't have to go through this other process. So it happens all different kinds of ways. Yep.
But this is a plug for other communities. There are communities that have huge influx of immigrant populations, other languages coming in, Green Bay in particular, and they can't keep up because there's a group of English-speaking kids and then there's a large group and the teachers don't speak Hmong or they don't speak Spanish, and all of a sudden it's like two worlds colliding, or three worlds colliding, depending on how many kids. So it's a real challenge that the state of Wisconsin is getting because of the population shifts that are moving in, which different cultures, different languages. So, luckily here we don't have a huge number, and luckily in that only for the fact that it's hard to keep up with the personnel and the language differences. And again, that's just assuming if it's like English to Spanish. That's a pretty standard language teachers will teach. They don't have a lot of teachers that speak other languages.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Next, that may be it. Oh, and just classroom. So this is an area that we're really trying to work on, because teachers give tests, and depending on what type, math teacher? Oh, she's grading tests right now. So giving those kinds of tests, a lot of that can come from the curriculum itself. Sometimes they do projects. Sometimes they do things that are a little bit different. So those are classroom created. The formal tests are usually what gets the biggest amount of the grade. So they're your assessments. What did you learn up until now? And then there's the informal, which would help guide instruction, like your daily work, your discussions, your observations. So the classroom is where the kids really, they seem to get that part the most. They understand the value, and I think parents understand the value because that's what we had, right? We had the Iowa Basic, and Mike said he drew a Christmas tree on that or something.
when I was in 4th grade, my parents decided to not have me get stressed out over the test, so they said, it doesn't really matter. My parents might even be watching this video as we speak. And I decided to make a great patchwork on my bubbled-in Iowa Basic test of skills, and I scored an 8th percentile. So it's hard to believe that there were still 7 percentile kids below me, but my parents were not very happy with that. So I had to retake that assessment. But again, I want to caution. I mean, again, we want kids to not be stressed out about this stuff, but then we do want them to understand, show out on the test, show what you know, and then we can be successful.
Yeah.
I did not get retained as a result of that. I just had to retake it. But
We cannot retake it
sorry,
anymore.
Mrs. Hahn, my teacher in 4th grade.
No more retakes. I think that's just, these are just the tools we use. Fast Bridge, because I know I say these words a lot, but it's hard, I realize most people don't know what I'm talking about. So just the different platforms we used to, and these have changed because of things that the state has changed for the most part, and because a lot of these things cost money, and trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can with them. So our PLCs are really working on trying to match those classroom assessments to the state standards, so that way, if they're practicing those state standards, which is what they should be learning anyway, when we get to the forward, they should do just fine. Or we should at least be able to predict how they will do, right? So when we see that, and then we go back and look at their grades, we can say, okay, that's a match. Or if it's not, then we might have an effort or other kind of problem there, so. Yeah.
So currently, the state, some of the things you may have heard about Act 20 was how do they determine what the screener will be? And there was some politics involved, of course, lots of bids that were given, and this is multi-million-dollar contracts here with the state of Wisconsin, because if every state has to do that, if every school in the state has to do this, and you win the contract, that's a pretty big deal. The other piece is many, many districts already have things in place. Like, for example, we were moving to Fast Bridge already, and we used to use map tests already. So now if the state comes in and says you have to shift gears because we're telling you to, magic wand, it becomes a challenge because we already have trained staff. Staff have started to believe in the use of the data. They've used it in our system, and there could be a counter there that's not the best. I don't know where this will go. Ames Web was the chosen program. Many school districts around us, the high achievers, use FastBridge. That's why we moved to it. It's an effective program. We're going to continue with that because we feel like it gives us good classroom data and good overall data in our system. But again, we've got to watch that because cost is a factor. We can't just buy every assessment under the sun and expect it to have magic powers to help instruction. So we're working hard to make sure that FastBridge is implemented with fidelity, but it's also not necessarily the same across, if you went to a neighboring district, they may not use FastBridge.
So the state requires this.
State requires Ames Web. Correct,
Certain
yes.
parts.
Yes.
Certain parts.
And that is part of the discussion at the legislative level as well, is unfunded mandates. It's usually a per pupil charge, you know, a couple bucks a kid. But again, every little bit counts when you're forced into a purchase. And so that's another conversation piece of, if you're gonna do this, and then when we went to the convention, the 2 breakout sessions that I couldn't even go to because the room wasn't, it was standing room only, were the sessions about how to get this paid for in your school district by the state. So it's an interest that we all have. We're small. Imagine if you had 10,000 students times $5 a student. It's a forced mandate that's pretty pricey. So we're watching to see how this all goes together. But then the other piece is, only a few of these right now fit into the state report card.
Yeah.
So we don't use Ames Web or FastBridge as part of our indicator with the state report card. We do use Forward on there as one of our indicators we talked about earlier this year.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Now, do we get any data, feedback from the state, or,
Well, so there's the report card.
okay,
Yep, that shows, and you know, we did very well, that
Right.
we had the 81, that score, so phone's
so you
making
do get
noises.
some comparison to
Yep.
the district?
We can see how we're doing against others.
So Act 20 will be rolled into the state report?
you betcha, it's not yet. I will, if I'm a betting
I
man.
haven't heard exactly, but we are reporting it to them, and
Yes.
they haven't told us how they might use it, but
As of today, no. In the future, it'll absolutely, if you're reporting the data, they're gonna use it for something to determine the success of programming or whatever it may be. So we'll wait and see on that. And that's part of the issue too, is that we talked about how over time, the state report card score isn't really apples to apples because they're changing the formula for how you get that score every couple of years. So the last 2 years, you may be using the same comparable data, and then all of a sudden they'll change it and add a piece, and it's like, well, that's a different set of data entirely. So your 81 doesn't mean the same as an 81 the year before, but you're comparing it. You're saying, oh, we went up. Sure, compared to what, with what data? So it's sort of a moving target, but it's important to have the accountability at the state level, and it's important for us. We believe that Act 20 is a good thing. It's not an easy thing, but overall, teaching literacy instruction the same way, kindergarten, first, and second grade, should have an impact and get our numbers of screener kids reduced. Fair enough?
yes, absolutely.
That, and we are
That's our hope.
seeing with our program that we're using, UFly, that program is being implemented with fidelity, and it's working. Teachers are seeing some real growth, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty excited about it, yeah.
So all the kids take the test,
Yeah,
and then any of them that are below the 25% percentile,
Yeah.
that's where you have to put in all the extra work to get
Yeah.
them
that's right.
all of this stuff.
Right.
And that's where all the work is, right?
Yeah.
Or-
Well,
or
and the test that they're taking is much more detailed than what they used to. We used to kind of put them on a computer and they took the map test. But now for these younger kids, it's a lot of one-to-one.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
teachers are having to sit, you know, we're gonna test you on letter sound fluency, and then we're gonna test you on, can you segment a word into different sounds? And can you do it the opposite? Can you blend it? So there's different things, and it's a very, what would I say, time-intensive process.
So when we are making cuts in a couple of weeks here, this is one of those areas that people say, well, how much harder will it be for teachers to have less resources? You know, can't they figure it out? This is the challenge, because if we don't have a person, for example, if we cut one of our interventionists, which we may have to consider that as part of our reduction plan, that intervention person will not be available to do this stuff. So then who does it?
Yeah.
The classroom teacher. How do they do that? We've got to find a way to get them time to be one-on-one with a kid or two-on-one with a kid to be able to do these things. So we're not sitting here with extra fluffy people just walking around and hanging out drinking coffee. It may seem like that at times when you come in and we are happy and we enjoy our jobs. At the same time, that's a person that has a role that carries things out. So we've got to be cautious not to jump to conclusions and say, oh, cut this intervention person and cut that intervention person, and what do they even do? This is one part of the puzzle, in terms of student support. And these are our trickiest kids sometimes, that just with a little extra support, that student can start to read. And then, you can quote unquote fix them. You can work through the processes, and that's the challenge of cuts.
It's all good stuff. I
Yep.
mean, we really believe in what we're doing, but I think it's when people say, this is one of the things. Why do you need people to do these kinds of, well, this is why. This is a whole job in itself, honestly. And for a small district like us, we can kind of pull things off because we got hardworking teachers and we can make decisions rather quickly. We don't have to go through all the red tape of a bigger district.
And we have smart kids. I mean, we have overall smart kids. We don't
Yes, we
have
do.
huge deficits. When you're in other neighboring communities that have
Correct.
50% of their kids not reading on grade level, that's where you can see this thing really fall off when you start to make cuts and change things. We have 1.5 interventionists, and then we have, she oversees the interventionist program and the data. So Dana is involved with that, but not running it uniquely. So it seems like, oh, that's a lot of people. But again, we just named off 20% of every single classroom is a handful of kids from every single classroom in the whole building. There's 400 kids here. So it adds up quick. That's about 85 kids if you're counting. You have to plan for, assess, work with, et cetera. So it's full-time work, that's for sure. But I wanted to point that out as we're making some decisions, and the public is going to have lots of opinions about, hey, why'd they do this, why'd they do that. We have to take into account all these moving parts when making changes.
I have a question. So if I remember correctly, when my kids were in school, there were volunteers that did like remedial reading or,
Yeah.
help with math. Is that allowed?
Not for this purpose,
Well,
but it would be, we would love it.
yeah. If
Sure.
you
Yeah,
had volunteers that would
absolutely.
come in and-
Yeah, we would welcome
We'll take help.
senior readers or
Sure.
whatever, whatever
Awesome,
volunteers, yeah.
let's do
Or,
that.
and I'm sure math.
Yeah,
We used to do that pre-COVID, because I used to volunteer.
Sure.
Pre-COVID and
we
do
would,
those cards and stuff with kids out in the hallway, and then they
Yeah.
stuff
Sure.
all that.
we would, that'd be a great
Senior breakfast.
Yeah.
place to, after senior, well, actually, at senior breakfast 2 months ago, we had, the students came in one class and they picked a senior and they read with them. So it was done 2 months ago. So it was, we took over the room with some readers. And so it is very powerful to have volunteers. We absolutely would love volunteers. So please, contact the office if you want to come in. But obviously, pre-COVID, we were certainly a lot more with that. Post, we're back, and you're welcome to, you can wear a mask and read with a kid. We don't care. If you want to be safe, that's fine. Or if you want to just come in and get coughed on by kids, that's fine too, because they will cough right in your mouth. That's every single time they cough right into your mouth. But it's really important to have that, because the practice does make perfect. There is something to repeated reading, but when it comes to intervention, you've got to have that prescriptive nature to it with a program that has a professional doing it, so.
So to do that,
Yeah,
what might be a good idea is have some sort of, lack of a better term, job description. We'd love to have volunteers. Here's what we'd like you to do. Here's what we'd like you to do. And how often we'd
Yeah.
like you to do it. So that people know what's expected of them. And two, what time is this gonna take from my life?
And we would background check those individuals,
Well, I
because
suppose
they're sitting with other people's kids. So we background check them and we'd have a list. So there's some steps to be taken for sure, because we want to be safe and effective. So we certainly can do that, and I think it's worthy of, we have some great seniors that come here often.
United Way Schools of Hope
Mm-hmm.
program might be something to look into, because that is specifically for reading tutors.
Sure. Yeah, we did Schools of Hope, and when I was in Racine at Roosevelt, we did Schools of Hope, so might be worthy to look into.
is that not income-based?
They have, Racine County has some stipulations for it, but we can
Yeah,
look into that for
need-based,
sure.
that's what I
Need-based,
said.
yes. So again, another possibility, or we can go Raymond style and just do it the Raymond way and come up with our own program too. But I think, Schools of Hope is a great program that I think is existing well. So thank you, Dana, for coming in. Any other questions for Dana around assessment? I just wanted to give her a chance to kind of talk about her world, what keeps her up at night.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Excellent. And if Dana wants to go, she can, because it's been a long day. However, you can also stay for the fun, which is our next piece here. See how I start? If she gets up and leaves, then I'm doing it poorly? Okay. Awesome. well, just give me a moment here, we transition over to our next topic, which is strategic planning. So we, as an organization, have a future we have to plan for, and that's a future regardless of whatever the outcome was for the referendum. The voters spoke, and here we sit now with having to make some big decisions in the next couple of weeks. We certainly will do that, but we have to have a plan. And so after those decisions come down and cuts are made and things are revised for next year, we have a future we have to get on the same page with our community and within our staff. The good news is, on the staff side, we have tremendous staff who are working really hard to make this thing the best experience it can be for kids. They currently are doing that, and they will do that as a stripped-down model next year. But we need to know where this thing is going and where the community wants, what their ideas and thoughts are around our organization, our existence. We are not, we're not closing our doors, but at the same time, it's the revised version 2.0 of Raymond has to come out of these conversations. So we will be meeting sometime between May and September. There'll be multiple meetings. The board will be there. The community members who are here, I hope, will engage and come because, again, those discussions are really important. The more, the merrier. I have had the privilege of doing this for about 7 different districts in my own career. I've guided districts from the side as a principal who's done strategic planning, so we're not going to pay money to a contractor to do this. I have been paid in my life thousands of dollars by other districts to do this, but I come with a value, so that's the Mike Leach package. So it is written in my contract, actually, yes. So strategic planning was something that I value and I talked about in my interviews, and I think that it's really important to put out there because it's a way for us to think as a community with focus, because everybody's got a million ideas, and some of the ideas are great, and some of the ideas just can't happen, and so we have to get our hands around, okay, what are some concrete goals, and then what are some metrics for measuring what success looks like when you achieve those goals, so you can keep moving the things forward. So in April to May, we will send a community survey out. We are not paying for the survey. The survey has no cost. I am making the survey in Google. So there are companies you can pay thousands of dollars to that we are not using. So I want to be clear to the community that we are not hiring a consultant and we are not hiring an agency for survey. As a result, I'm going to do the best I can with our survey. So we are creating a survey. The board will have access to that prior. I'll share some drafts with you. If there are questions you want me to add, it's our survey. So we will collect the data based on what we're interested in. That survey will go out in sometime in early May, so we'll probably have that discussion as to what we want in the survey here soon. And then we'll send that out, and we can leave it open as long as we'd like. I'd say a month is usually a little too long. Usually that 2 to 3 week window is about the magic stroke. So we will gather our data. It'll be survey, and then we'll have some ability for us to focus group off of that. So we'll take the results, and people can indicate in there, please contact me for more discussion. Some people are into that, some people are not. We'll then meet with those people individually. We'll set up a couple of listening sessions for the community, and we'll start to gather up what are the big buckets, I call them, the big buckets of important things. And you know, we don't want a lot of buckets. We want a few buckets that we can fill up with our time and our talent. So a lot of times you result in 3 or 4 buckets, at the most 5. But those are usually larger districts who have more people who can divide up. And so 4 is usually that sweet spot we end with. And we'll go through, this group will, have norms for our work. We'll explain the process of strategic planning, which is what I'm doing here today with the board, so you understand this is what we're talking about. The norms for the group are really important because we want people to be, having a voice, but also understanding that just because they say it doesn't mean it's going to happen. The agenda for us is kind of broken down in these broad sessions. So session 1 would be the board developing a clear vision. The board develops that vision, and we want the community to respond, react, and revise, if needed, that vision. So the board sets it, and then we discuss. The strategic planning and community with staff would be session 2. So the board sets the vision. We don't have a vision right now. We do not have a vision that I have found. So we do have a lot of documents that have talked about words that are important to us. Earlier this year, we had discussion as a board to set our mission, vision, values document that we started. We'll start with that document as, hey, here's what we currently sit with. And then from there, we plan our mission. So the vision guides the mission. The vision is the overall, and then the mission is the work. So that mission statement will be revised. Our mission statement is read before every board meeting. When people have a chance to look at it and really toil with it for a little bit and wordsmith, that will change. So, and chances are it'll even shorten a little bit because sometimes missions are a little bit too wordy. So the mission and vision will be completed. And then we'll create those bucket areas based off of what comes out of the survey, what comes out of those focus groups, those discussion groups. Really we run a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats when we do those 2 focus group discussions. What are the strengths of Raymond? What are the opportunities that we have? What are our weaknesses and what are our threats? And the people in this room have lived a year or 2 of a lot of those discussions. So I'm sure this is not going to be hard to conjure up opinions and thoughts about what is, good for us, what's bad for us, and everything in between. We then hopefully can expel some of those things that we just have to move on from, and at the same time, identify some of those things that we can learn from that'll help us in those bucket descriptions. Then the community will start to, from there, in June, we'll articulate some goals. So those buckets, for example, I did this with a different district, and I can show you what that looks like in a second here. We ended up with 4 buckets. They had very specific tasks tied to them. And then from there, we would have our goal session and our action steps. When it gets to the action steps time, the community and the board are done with that because the people here, our staff, are the ones who are doing the actions. They work here. So we have the staff assigned to creating those action steps. So the buckets are made by the community, the goals are established by the community and the board, and then the people that do the work. I mentioned this in my interview. You give people brooms, they get to pick the broom, and they get to decide how to sweep. But they've got to figure out those action steps. It's really important to understand that piece. And then we have an established document that sits on our website that says these are the things we're working on, and it helps the board guide some of the work that they do. So our vision is really about, what do we want Raymond to represent in our community? We'll go through an activity in which you have vision statements from the top 100 schools in the world. AI is wonderful. You can have them take words from all those vision statements and they conjure them into the top 10 list of vision statements. And then what are the words from those K-8 systems that popped? And so we'll go through an exercise when we do this as a board that says, okay, what are the words you really see here that speak to you, that say, like, this is important to our community, it's part of our vision. So that's part of our activity we'll do. Our mission, this is our current mission. It's a good mission, but it's a mission we're going to look at and make sure that this aligns with what we want as we move forward in the 21st century. Our plan will be then to create, again, this is a district that had 3 focus areas. We can have 3, 4, we can have 10, but I'd recommend 3 or 4. And that way you're able to do those things. And then again, we go through and this document gets created that basically allows us to have our plan. And it's pretty simple. This is 8 pages total. Not real wordy, not real long. But this becomes available and this becomes what we focus on when we're doing professional development. We take some time with staff. Everybody knows what this is about that works with this organization. And if a family wants to access this, it's on the website and we can talk them through it. So this is the draft of, sort of the framework, template, if you will. Again, we develop strategies and action plans then that feed into those big buckets. When I did this with my last school district, we had one that was focused on revenue and resources, marketing. We had one that was focused on curriculum and assessment, of course, because we're a school. We had one that focused on climate and culture, because those are 2 really living, breathing things that are important. And we had one that was systems. And I can tell you right now that we are working steadfast this year to develop systems. So as we talk, just a predictor, I think there's going to be some discussion about our systems to make sure we have things in place as we move things forward. So those are the 4 buckets that Wisconsin Virtual Learning, my past passion project, had in place. And again, different districts pick different things that are important to them. So those are the 4 buckets that we worked on. And of course, we monitor and evaluate that. So as a board, we'd be able to do quarterly checks. How are we doing? Is what we're doing aligning with this? It really gives that alignment piece a good discussion. Action plans are really then helping us to have our teams, because Dana had mentioned PLCs, that's an acronym for Professional Learning Community. That is collaboration amongst teams. So our 5th grade team can talk to our 3rd grade team, and they can have discussion about X. And so we have those team meetings in place now, and we want all the work we're doing to mean something. So the action plans start to connect the work we're doing across our teams and across our organization. So it's really important to try to align. Alignment's an important word in schools to make sure everybody's, rowing the boat in the same direction. So step 1 is defining clear and specific goals. They're SMART goals, probably familiar with what SMART goals are. Step 2, necessary resources. What do you need? And this is the part where we have committees. We have a finance committee on the board now. That's a committee that's going to hear, okay, what are the needs as we're making adjustments to our budget, as we're cutting, as we're adding, whatever it may be. These are some of the steps to making sure we have the right resources for each of those teams. Step 3, assigning responsibilities. Step 4, action planning. Again, what are the potential obstacles? How and when can we, communicate something? How do we execute it? And then afterwards, how do we reflect on what we did and how it went? And then we monitor. Again, we have to inspect what we expect. So it's important that we figure out a way to check on all those things we said was important. So if we said it was important in June and July and August, why are we not working on it all year long, right? And oftentimes we get lost because things come up. So we will go through this process and have that community input. It's critical that we have community input. I need to talk to more people than I did for our referendum. I need to hear from everybody who has an opinion about Raymond and where we think this thing is going. Because
How are you gonna send that survey out?
we're going to send it electronically. We will probably also post something in the paper with a QR code. It'll allow them to, we were going to do a paper advertisement in our wonderful local Racine County iPaper, as well as the other papers. So we'll make sure we get that message out. That costs money. I know it costs money. But at the same time, this is super valuable input we need to have. We can't have people in Raymond on the sidelines anymore for our school. We need them to know what's going on, be it through a community picnic or a survey or whatever we can do to bring them into our doors to get them to see the work that we're doing with the youth of Raymond. So QR code is the word, for sure.
That's the key.
Yeah,
Because a lot of people, you get into a website and you get lost.
yeah. It'll be on our website, it'll be in social media, but for those people that don't do those things, we certainly can make sure. We'll also have some posters up. We will have some tracking, so we will ask for email addresses. So if we have data that come in that are not, we don't want just, anybody passing through a local establishment to click a QR code and take a survey while they're eating dinner. That's not what we're looking for. We don't want,
That QR code is not gonna take them to the website, it's gonna take them right to the survey.
Correct.
Or the strategic planning.
right to the form. It's a Google form. Yeah.
You can't send out a text message?
We can, yep, absolutely. We'll do that for all of our internal people. If you're a family here, you will get this through the normal blast of texting, calling, emailing. It's the people that are not. We have about 60 people on our community list, which is exciting. I'd like that to be 600. But those 60 people that are on that list will get that as well. They get periodic emails from us with our newsletter and other announcements. We send that to them currently. So the QR code invited them to join that group on the last referendum. So QR and link, it'll be directly into the survey. So, all right. And then of course, we've got to go through and anticipate challenges we face, which is important as any things you're trying to change. We got to communicate the plan to our public, and we got to execute and adapt. We got to find a way to make sure that this thing gets pulled off. So when we're going through our process, we will describe the buckets. We'll have the objectives, we'll have the goals, we'll have the action plans, action steps, and then we'll execute and adapt. And at the end of the year, you got to, what's your delta, right? Plus delta, we got to make sure we make some changes sometimes. So what's next? What do you care? You should, because it's a really important process. Community survey will be sometime, I'm thinking between now and May 15th. We'd like to have that survey issued. Tabulate and create priorities for the district based on the feedback. We'll have our bucket topics and definitions of each bucket. We'll host 2 sessions in May and June. We're thinking one on a weeknight and one on a Saturday morning. Because again, we want to be open to this and be as transparent to the public as we can be. We want to work with community and staff to create goal statements. We want to work with staff to create action steps. That's the key. And then we want to publish and present. And my hope is that maybe at the annual meeting in October, we can share the fruits of the labor as part of that. Hey, here's this booklet we can put together with some good information for you. So that's the goal, is that we have this strategic plan accomplished by and ready to go to press by October.
Is there for that survey gonna be a way for people who are in the community that don't use the internet?
We could provide paper copies if they wanted to. I have to think about that a little bit. I've seen places that have sent out, hey, please mail me one, request kind of a form. But again, sometimes you're sending out the form electronically and you're saying you want it in paper, so it's a little weird. But we can certainly provide paper copies for those who want that.
Like I said, there's a lot of people that
Right.
don't use the internet or don't want to use the internet.
And if that's the case, they can turn it in and we'll just data entry, we'll just input the data. It's not the most ideal topic, but our clerical support in the front's gonna hate me for saying it, but we'll get it done. And it's important to have those opinions for sure. That's it. That's right. So any other questions at all about our strategic planning process?
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, well, I'm full-time here, so I don't have to work toward a referendum for a little while here, so I can, do some things.
My question is, with the school year starting in September, is October too late to release the plan?
No, but by then our staff we want time for staff to come back and really dig into those action steps. We don't want this to be we did this over the summer, teachers, here's all the stuff you have to do, because you want them to build it. And they build it in August and September. And then by October, we're able to present that sort of polished product of here are the 4 buckets, here are the goals. So the purpose is that if you really want collective inquiry, you really want that build, it's got to come in the months we have people, which is August and September.
Okay.
So
Maybe 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, some, depending on what.
there are, when you look at this and you go back, there are long-term and short-term elements to it. Usually 3 to 5 is about the longest, because think about what happens in 5 years. And so when you go through this, right now, you've got your priority levels, your P1, your P2, and your P3. Really, that's like year 1, year 2, year 3. So when you go through your action steps, and this is just an example of someone else's, you would go through and this was from Swallow School in Heartland, which I worked with a little while ago. And so the idea is, what's the P1, P2, P3 that you have for those schools, for your various committees?
We had signs that said Raymond strong. Okay.
There you go. So that's what we have coming down the pike. I wanted the board to have a chance to talk about it and hear about it, so that when someone says, I hear you're doing some kind of planning thing, you have a chance to say, yep, we are. Please engage. At those events, we would welcome people, we'd welcome snacks, we'd welcome, whatever we can do to make people feel like they're part of something. So what I'd ask from the board is, we have some good culinary experts. Maybe we come up with, a few treats and have an open session. They may be held in here, or they may be held in our atrium. Our atrium's got awesome light, and I feel like having it in the natural light, maybe even outside if it's a nice day, being able to enjoy our grounds a little bit, and use the outdoor classroom a little bit. So trying to have it in a space that's, got people motivated, and then from there, like I said, we'll put out dates. We'll make sure the dates are as amicable as possible. Those dates it'll be summer though. It'll be your June, July, August timeline. Why? Because again, we want to get going on this. Because again, this could drive, from here, there could be discussion. Maybe we need to consider another referendum. Maybe we don't need to consider another referendum. If we don't, okay, well then what's the goal? Where are we going with this? Because I think that's where you're gonna get the input from the community, and that buy-in starts in those conversations, not when we're asking a question on a ballot. So we had to do what we had to do this year, but let's be honest, it was a lot of effort and disappointing, but at the same time, I get it. So let's move forward in our own way.
My hindsight's always 20/20, obviously. It's too bad that the survey, or whatever we would plan to do, like Friday night, we have a big to-do, right? I don't know how many more of those to-dos we're gonna have that we'll be having in the big gym or whatever. But to have pamphlets or one pieces of paper, whatever, that people just take on their way out, and maybe have a student hand it out to them. Because you're gonna get a lot of people that here that may not have students here.
Sure.
They know, aunts, uncles, grandparents,
Sure.
whatever.
I can talk with the board, and I have the survey done. I can just push it out to you and see what you think, and if it's got the right questions, we can roll. So it's done, it's ready to go.
And you want it electronically, I understand, and that's fine.
Yep.
If you put on the survey, the QR code, they can at least take it home, know what questions they're gonna be looking at, and then click on that and do it online.
Yep.
It's all about getting it out there, right?
Right. So let me just see if I
Is
can,
the musical Friday?
yes, the
Yeah.
musical is Thursday, Thursday
Thursday,
night.
Friday, Saturday.
Even Sunday, they had the big
Oh, yeah, that was.
thing, that was a good turnout.
Oh, yeah.
Was there a lot of people?
Were you there?
You were at the
Yeah.
Thursday.
It seemed a lot
I don't know
larger
if
than
it's
we got
chairs
used to
or
last year.
It was
So that
busy
was-
all
There
afternoon.
was a lot of children.
I sent a couple of my kids over, but
A lot of people spending
I had some.
good money on that.
I know.
Here we go.
Miss Edwards, Miss Edwards.
So, while we were sitting here, just for those 5 minutes, I actually wrote the survey while we were sitting here. It's pretty magical. Just kidding. So here's a draft of the survey.
I
Ed,
got 50/50. I had 348,000.
Ed,
What's that, I'm sorry?
here's the survey.
Oh, okay.
So I'll push this out to you, you can check it out, but again, it's got a number of questions on it. Asking about engagement, effectiveness, technology, mental health services for students, current level of extracurriculars, overall quality of education, current curriculum, the extent we believe in our instructional methods, engaging kids, variety of courses and programs. So again, I'll push this out to you and you can look it through with a fine tooth comb and say, yep, I like this one, I'm not so sure about this one. This is based off of the framework that you pay for.
Oh, I understand.
So this is the Mike Leach version.
No, I get it.
But at the same time, it's one that I think we can control, because that way we know what we want to have
Right.
info back.
To me, it feels like it's more geared towards parents of students more than it is the community. Is that right?
It is, I mean, our number one is the kids who come here, But there are a lot of people who have had kids who have gone through here, and they can certainly say, well, here's what I know based on my experience.
Okay.
So there are some questions that the answer is, I'm not sure, because they don't know the answer. There are others where they'll feel like they have an opinion from 10 years ago, and you might hear that opinion from 10 years ago, and that's fine.
But to Jen's point, what about what the community thinks we can do with the building outside of just teaching?
I agree.
Is there a
That's what I was-
community room?
Sure.
Is there any of that on here, or no?
There are, and we can add those at the end, because I think it's important. What I think we've talked about a little bit with this is what happens with the grounds here? How does that look? Facilities and grounds and, and neighboring grounds and baseball and all these good things.
Right.
What are the options? Because then, once we drill in on this, that's when those collective discussions can happen to say, there's a group of 12 people that want to talk about facilities and grounds. Boom, over there in the corner, they're going to talk about that today. And then these 10 or 12 are going to talk about curriculum or whatever. So we get people involved and engaged in the discussions. So again, I'll share this with you. If you want to rock and roll on this soon, I think, we could possibly capture something by this weekend. My only caution would be that the board hasn't approved anything, but I think a survey, you're giving me the ability to, send out a survey. You can't do that tonight because we're not taking action tonight. So
Right.
we could hold, not try and rush it this week and maybe push it out after the board meeting, or we can decide to just, giddy up. we'll have to discuss that once you've taken a look at the survey, so.
Well, there isn't really no, between now and May, there really no is other big to-dos at the school here, right?
There's High Interest Day, is a big one.
That'll be another time.
But that's
Put it out
another
there
one.
again.
But again, when you have your audiences, I think this is the weekend you're gonna see the most people because of the fact that the community comes in for the performance. For sure, so I'll push this out to you, and I'll even, I can post a draft of this, on our website too. And for people who wanna tune in before we send it out, that's fine too. This is already on, this presentation's already linked to our website, as it is for tonight. And then Dana's presentation will also be linked, so that we have a chance to see both of
And then,
those.
do you have a place for commentary for people to write? What do you think?
I can add those pieces, we can do a short response, paragraph response. There's long answer text. In your opinion, what steps can our district take to create a more inclusive and diverse learning environment? How do you think our school can better prepare students for 21st century job market? There are already some questions in there
Okay, all right.
that are already like that, but I can certainly, when you look at it, you can say, hey, I think this one needs an open response.
Okay.
Now, careful what you wish for. I mean, we're gonna get a lot of information from this, and it's great, but then how do we, I gotta pare this thing down and create those
I
buckets.
think that makes sense of it all, but.
But Google does a pretty good job of creating some good charts and graphs based off of it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But again, they usually hire a company for a couple $1,000 to do all this for you, but we're gonna do it the Raymond way, and we're gonna take care of it in-house, which is good. I think we can also then craft to what we want. We can really customize it, so it's a good thing.
Oh, good. Audrey said she knows Excel.
Audrey's a whiz banger with Excel, that's good, yes, that's what I heard.
Make a few charts.
Actually, I use Excel every day.
Yeah, Jen is in on Excel, she's our Excel guru, that's good. So, any other open discussion from strategic planning?
No, that's good. Good presentation. I like it.
Very nice.
Good. So, what we'd be looking now to do is we have an adjournment of this meeting, and then we have a special meeting starting after, so.
Okay, so looking for a motion to adjourn, since we've completed our workshop. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
6:32 PM,
Pardon me?
6:32.
6:32, yes. We are now adjourned. Motion carries, we are adjourned. Okay, we're going to move right into our special meeting. And once again, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public to conduct the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Our community is provided with a forum for public comment at the regular board meeting each month. So this meeting is now called to order, and it is 6:33. And again, will you please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mike,
Patty Wren. Ed Robinson. Mike Powers. Janelle Wise is absent excused. And Audrey Costick.
here. Thank you. Verification of public notice pursuant to 19.841 Wisconsin statutes.
The meeting was posted in all the usual places, including eVirgin stores, the schoolhouse windows, the village hall. Media were notified, and it's on our website.
Okay, thank you. We move to approve the agenda of this meeting, and that is the evaluation and feedback of the superintendent, and this is an annual process that is required by DPI. Is there a motion to approve?
A motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We now will need a motion to move to closed. In the closed session, the board may convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. We will convene the closed session in the main office conference room. The board will return to the cafeteria to regular session upon completion of the closed session. Do we have a motion to move to closed?
Motion to move to closed session.
We have a motion and a second to move to closed session. All those in,
Do a roll call.
okay?
Patty Wren?
Here.
Ed Robinson?
Yes.
Mike Powers?
Yep.
Audrey Kostic?
Yes,
And Janelle Wise is absent excused.
okay. Motion carries.
4 to 0, yes.
Yeah, okay, motion carries. We are now in closed. I will say this is, there will be no actions taken, so although we will come back into open in here to adjourn. So just so you're aware of that.
And I have been given permission to
And
go
you have
home.
been permission to leave.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you all.
And I'm not allowed yet because I'm not sworn in yet.
But then next time we meet, you'll be given an invite in the closed session. You'll be sworn in.